now the only avenue that's open is online dating,
Yeah,
like the
that's what
dating
everyone's
app.
doing. Oh yeah.
My therapist has been telling me, my friends have been telling me, like, hey, you got to do this thing, right? You got to give it a shot. So I was like, all right, let me see what this whole thing is about.
Uh-huh.
And almost immediately, it was like anxiety inducing.
Hello?
Oh, hey, Lyle?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm all right. What's it called? I was, had a little bit of time to myself. I got like a month and a half off of work, and I got a, apartment to myself and a lot of free time. And at first I was having a good time, and then existential dread, started to set in.
Yes. All right. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. And last episode of this podcast, I went on a whole rant about how solving your problem, or about how what is it, that talking about your problems doesn't really solve them. But I am curious from your perspective. I want to know about your existential crisis, because I'm also in the midst of a strong existential crisis. And I don't know why, but it's something about your voice, Mo. You seem like a normal human being that I can connect with, and so I want to know. I want to know about your existential crisis and about your life.
Sure. So, since I have a lot of free time to think, I just want to preface this whole thing real quick with, so I do see a therapist, and I do see a therapist regularly, and I know you're not, like a certified therapist, and I was just hoping to get some perspective on some things. And I think it all kind of goes back to, I think 2 callers ago you were talking about how you feel lonely at times, right?
Yes, I was talking about that.
Yeah, so for a long time I've been dealing with depression and anxiety, and very recently, I, have had a very drastically different view on how I view my depression and anxiety. Like a lot of, difficult moments in life, I'm learning the gifts that they have to offer, right? My last relationship was like 4 years ago, and, throughout these past 4 years, I felt differently about loneliness. As of right now, I have my spikes of loneliness, but they're filled with like a sweet sadness, where I'm like, okay, I'm lonely. What is it I'm seeking out of a connection? Is it like for somebody to hold me and tell me, that that I'm good enough, that I'm doing a great job? Well, I can validate myself. Get the validation from inside.
Sure.
So the gift that loneliness is offering is, self-love, self-validation, right? Pat yourself on the back.
Sure.
But I don't know, like, I guess because I have all this free time and I'm not occupied, there's no action that's being taken. I'm just like, going out for a run, going out for a walk, that like loneliness, like I don't know, I just don't feel like a sense of urgency to like, I don't know, like tackle it. I'm having a good time most of the time, so I'm just like, what's the need to go out there and like actively look for a partner? There's no, I just don't feel like putting in the effort there, and at the same time, like, I don't want to be alone either. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, idle hands belong to the devil, and the devil comes in many forms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lately, the devil for me is coming in the form of looking at Reddit and seeing a bunch of like just insane things every day on there. But yeah, I mean, you got to do something or else. I mean, that's what life is, really. Life is trying to fill your day with things to do so that you don't die. Now, I mean, not so that you don't die, so that you don't get depressed and existential. Now, it's kind of a privilege to be depressed and existential in the sense that, for like most of the world, the thing that they focus on, that they distract them, for most of the world, the thing that people are distracting themselves with, so that they don't feel existential, is their own pure survival. You know? That's like what most people distract themselves with. If you're lucky, you take some sense of pride in whatever it is that you do to survive. Or maybe whatever it is you do to survive is supplemented by other things that distract you. Like, friends and family and a dog or whatever the fuck. But yeah, I mean, it's just, life is just trying to find ways to not think.
Right. And like so much of my life is just like, it's not like, I'm like well off, I'm like, I'm doing really well financially, because I'm not. I'm like fairly broke most of the time, right? But there's so much good about my life, or my social network, my friends. I've known everybody for such a long time, like 18, 15 years, and I've a lot of really solid friendships. My network is really supportive and loving all the time, and really understanding,
It's great.
And but like when it comes to like a search for a partner, right? That's like the difficult part for me, where I don't, I'm not in school, I'm not in college or anything, so there's that avenue is like blocked off, right? My job is like, it's a pretty messed up job, so there's no woman around to interact with there, right? So that avenue is blocked off. And in the past, like my relationships, the ones I had, there's just been friendships that like all of a sudden like transition into a relationship, and I never really had to do any work, in regards to like courtship and shit, right?
Right.
And now the only avenue that's open is online dating,
Yeah,
like
that's
the dating
what everyone's
app.
doing. Oh yeah.
Yeah, my therapist has been telling me, my friends have been telling me, like, hey, you got to do this thing, right? You got to give it a shot. So I was like, all right, let me see what this whole thing is about. And almost immediately, it was like anxiety-inducing,
Yeah, it sucks.
Because
Yeah, it's
I've
awful.
never really, I could never really articulate what it is precisely that I don't like about online dating. I'd say things like, oh, like people just ghost you in the middle of the conversation. That's frustrating. Or I don't like how fast-paced everything is. Like I'm just used to like slow-paced development into like a intimate relationship, from a friendship. And everybody has this sense of urgency on these dating apps, where it's just like one after the other, swipe through. And, I see it's not only anxiety inducing, I just see a lot of problem with it, It feels like, like, how do I explain it? Like, society's like, everybody, like the idea that they have of falling in love. Like, for example, like you wake up, you walk out the door, and you're walking down the street and you trip and fall. And like a girl helps you up, or you help up a girl that's fallen down, right? And you guys like, make eye contact, and you guys ask for each other's name. You guys go out to a coffee shop. You guys like meet up over the course of the next couple of weeks, months, figuring out like each other's values, like what are you about? Where are you going? Who do you want to be? And it's like a slow, steady process of falling in love, right? And there's none of that. I mean, I think that's beautiful, right? And it's high risk, and it's beautiful. And online dating just strips you all of that stuff, right? Of the slow sweetness of falling in love. It's just like, oh, this person like values.
Necessarily, because I mean, online dating is just a way of meeting people. You know what I mean? So look, it's very possible that you can meet a lady on the dating apps and you guys start talking, and then maybe you start texting back and forth, and you just become friends. The way that everyone, forget about online dating specifically. I mean, everyone's like meeting each other and finding each other on fucking Discord and Instagram and all these things, and it's just like, you could pretty easily find, not easily, but you could find someone on these apps that you just start kind of gradually texting or being with, right? And here's the thing. I saw this in a Reddit comment a long time ago. I'm going to quote a Reddit comment.
Okay.
That dating is for people who are dating is for people who are either patient or lucky. So you have to be one of those two things, and if you're not, you will fail. So you either have to be super fucking lucky to find love, or you have to be super fucking patient. And by being super fucking patient, it means like being able to very easily brush off, all the common things rejection. Of like getting ghosted, getting rejected, not getting any matches, whatever it is. Like you have to just be able to keep brushing it off and just grind, and for years, like actual true patience, like for years, and not getting frustrated. Or you just get super lucky and you immediately log in. The first person you meet up with off the app, you're attracted to them, they're attracted to you. You like each other as human beings, and you get married. You can be super lucky if you're lucky. If you're lucky, you're lucky. You know what I mean? But if you're not lucky, you're just patient. Patience is the only other answer to that. Because look, it's like everything. If you continue to put effort into the search and it doesn't drive you fucking completely insane, and you just keep being patient and you keep trying, eventually it's like you'll find something. I mean, we had a guy on the podcast come in here talking about how he went on over 100 dates before he found the woman who he's currently having a kid with. So, it might take 100 dates.
So I kind of have like a issue. I'm not saying in and of itself that's like a problem that a person is going on 100 dates and that's how somehow like morally or ethically incorrect in some way. I'm not saying that at all, right? For me personally, the issue I have with that, right, is when you're swiping through person after person, there's this constant idea in the back of your mind. You might not consciously acknowledge it, but let's say like you're in the middle of a conversation with a girl online that you matched with, right? And things are just going phenomenal. You're like, oh man, we have so much in common. Like, she's phenomenal. We have our political values are aligned, our et cetera is aligned. But in the back of your mind, that any second now, I might match with somebody who's maybe slightly more attractive than her, or maybe slightly more in tune with me, right?
Sure.
And online dating in that way perpetuates the idea that love is about idealization. We're looking for a perfect person. It's about idealization. It's not about acceptance. The value of like going on less dates, interacting with less people, is that slow, sweet grind of getting to figure somebody out. There's so much acceptance in that, right? Because along the way, you're like, man, I don't see eye to eye with her on these views, but she's so great in so many other ways. But I love her. She's great, right? And it becomes about acceptance, which I personally think is what love ought to be about, at least, right? So the going through iteration after iteration of people, it's like, it's like an axis of something, right? Like if you look at like back in my country, right? Whenever we went over to somebody's house and they give you Coca-Cola
where's
in a
your
bottle,
country?
I was born in Pakistan.
Okay, cool.
In a very, very, very small town. No one's heard of it and all. So it's like when I was growing up, man, we were like, we were, forget about cars, we were like riding around on like buggies and horses and stuff, right, to get around. And when you go over to somebody's house and they give you a Coca-Cola in a bottle, it was like, whoa, like this is special, right? This is a special thing, right? It's not like every night in Pakistan we were having like a can of Coke with our dinner or whatever, right? Now we have like an access of Coca-Cola. You can get Coca-Cola any fucking time, right? And it kind of loses its like I don't know, like there's an access of it. It loses its like specialness to it, right?
Of course.
The way I see online dating, it's like an access of sexuality that's on top of it commodified through a capitalist system, right?
Yeah.
And before I get too deep in that direction,
no, go ahead. You're speaking. Look. You're speaking total fat. Look, I have agreed with everything that you have said so far. I have things to add on top of it, but go ahead, please.
Yeah. So because in this system, the primary motive for anything, like take education, healthcare, it's for profit. It's for the bottom line. Online dating is no different. Like, I'm not going to pretend that, like, companies like Hinge and Tinder are out there and their primary motive is to help me fall in love, because it's not.
Of course not. Yes, of course not.
It's for me to engage as much as possible in their app so they can sell my data to advertisers, right? So it's not in their best interest for me to find love. And there was this Harvard professor that did a study on connection and love and online dating. And there was a journalist that asked that Harvard professor and a sex worker the same exact question: do the algorithms work? Both of them said the same exact thing: no, they do not. I found that kind of, funny and interesting.
Well, look. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Everything you said is correct. Yes, these apps are incentivized to make you want to continue to engage with them. Right. Yes, it's a for-profit system. All these things, but also at the end of the day, look, man, it's a for a lot of people get fucked on the apps for sure. But for a lot of people, it's a beneficiary transaction. The company makes money because they engaged with you and sent you ads. And I know 8 billion people who fucking met their significant other on Tinder or Hinge. And so to completely, utterly disregard any positive value that these apps can bring is a mistake. But
fair. Very fair.
I think what you said about love being about acceptance instead of idealization is also 100% correct. And it's interesting because it's like, yeah, I fully agree with you that love is about acceptance versus idealization. But also at the same time, it's like, well, what you have to kind of decide for yourself, okay, what can I not accept? And then like what do I like make your list, make your list ideally as small as possible. And then and then try to accept. And then try to do the work, because you'll never fucking find like I mean, sometimes you do. Sometimes that, by the way, that totally happens to some people. But it mainly happens to people who are just really, really physically attractive, and that's not most people. So it's probably not gonna happen to 99.99% of the people who are listening, and or to me or to you. But
right.
Yeah. So, and also, and you know what? Actually, fuck that. Even hold on. Actually, fuck that. Even really hot people still, I think, there's a levels of acceptance to that. Yeah.
Sure.
So I think I take that back. I take that back.
Well, in regards to you saying like, we can't ignore the value that it does have. Let me just say like right there that I also know people in my life that have met people online. They're married, and they couldn't be a better fit for each other. They're absolutely in love with each other. Their relationship is successful, and it's successful for many years. So I'm not, by pointing out, like that there's a mindless algorithm working behind the scenes to help you find love and capitalism, blah, 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 that it somehow has no value. It does. It does work. It does have value. And I'm not saying that, if I personally happen to find somebody online and it works out, that somehow our love is tainted by the hands of capitalism, right? It's not. It's just two people in love.
Right.
And I acknowledge that. This is like my big problem is that, there's so many things in the system that I wholeheartedly disagree with, but nonetheless still participate in, right? Like, I might not agree with certain corporations supporting certain wars out there, and nonetheless I'm going to end up giving them my money,
Sure.
And I have to, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism,
Yeah.
like that whole thing.
Sure.
So I have to pick and choose my battle.
Sure.
And I'm in the process of trying to determine, is this where I draw my line with capitalism? Is this the one thing that I pick where I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to support some wars out there with my money, with my tax dollars, whatever, but through my participation in the system. But love, that's one thing I'm going to hold sacred. And I'm going to remove myself from any participation in this online dating shit. And whatever happens, happens. As long...
Look, let me tell you something. Go ahead. You can finish. Go ahead.
The way I look at it in life, the best case scenario is you get to do the things that you want and be the person that you wanted to be. And at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, you had somebody along for the ride. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah, of course.
Second best case scenario, you didn't get to do the things you wanted. You didn't become the person you wanted to become, but at least you have somebody along for the ride. The worst case scenario, you didn't do the things you wanted to do. You didn't become the person you wanted to become, and you had nobody along for the ride. I at least want to make sure at the end of my life, on my deathbed, that I can say, I had no one along for the ride, but at least I was genuine and authentic and was myself and got to do the things I wanted, right? You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
How old are you?
So, it's I'm 31.
Okay, cool. Do you feel like as of your life so far that you've gotten to do all those things and be the person that you've wanted to be and do the things you've wanted to do?
Honestly, man, that's tough. It's only in the past year of my life where I feel like I'm kind of waking up to joy and happiness most of the time, and peace and feeling content. There's a couple of things, big things that I really want to do for myself that I haven't gotten to do yet, and yeah, so there's definitely things to left to cross off of my list for sure.
What's interesting is that, and by the way, what I'm about to say is not about romance, but about people. Doing all the it's tough, right? Because doing all the things that you want to do with no one along for the ride. For the ride. All this shit depends on who you are, because there's all these motherfuckers. I don't know how happy these people are, but there's all these people on Instagram that are like, I solo traveled for 9 months through all of Southeast Asia and all this stuff, and I'm like, I used to want to do it. I've done stuff like that, not for 9 months. And I've lived life like that. I've done lots of solo traveling. I've done lots of amazing, cool, great stuff. And I'm so happy I got to do it. But the way I look at it now, I'm just having to do that all alone just seems tiresome at this age and at this point. You know what I mean? And maybe that's I don't know. I don't know what that is. What are the things that you want to do that you said that you don't know if you have time for, or not that you don't know if you have time for, but that you haven't done yet?
Honestly, like the biggest thing, right, is for me to actually I want to be a behavioral therapist, and I went to college many years ago, and actually in the pursuit of love, kind of gave that up and moved across the country, for my girlfriend at the time, and things didn't work out. I tried to, get back to it. Things didn't work out again, and that's like one thing I want to do is become a behavioral therapist. And that's a long road ahead. That's many years of work,
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, I mean, is I was actually thinking about like, what is it that I ultimately want? And I thought to myself, like, if I have a studio apartment in a relatively safe area, and I have my behavioral therapy, I'm a behavioral therapist, I have my degree, and I'm seeing a few clients. I have a 10-year-old Corolla, then I'm able to live and eat comfortably and not wake up to like, $3.23 in my bank account.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm gonna be perfectly happy. I know I would be happy with that situation. I don't need, I know I don't need the fastest car and the biggest house,
right,
to be happy.
Right.
But that kind of goes into like the, and then I started thinking, okay, I would be happy with that. But what if I had a partner? Would she be happy with that? And, is my lack of desire for things stemming from the fact that I don't want to, quote unquote, participate in the capitalist machine and detach myself from material desires? Or is it,
So if you had a partner, right? Or like in your, so, we talked about like love being acceptance, right? Like if you, could you, but like we talked about love is acceptance, but it's good to have a few rules. Is that one of your rules that she has to join you in your rejection of capitalism?
No. Well, I actually, that's a really good question. So many people around me have drastically different views, like my best friend, drastically different views regarding religion, political ideology, economic ideology, etc. But when I think about like my partner, and I love all of them, and I'm very close to them, but when I think about my partner not sharing this, I don't need my partner to think the same exact way I do about Marxist socialism. That's tough. Yeah, no, I don't want her to live exactly the way I do. If she wants to consume things and have the fastest car, good. I just wouldn't want her to feel bad that I'm not that way. You know what I mean?
Okay, so it's like well, that makes perfect sense, right? It's like she doesn't have to be this way, but she does have to accept that I am this way.
Yeah, and even if she accepted it, right, I think to myself, like, oh, God, I hope there's no resentment in her heart and she doesn't think that I'm lacking ambition. This guy's just living in a studio apartment with a 10-year-old Corolla. I hope that doesn't, like, somehow brew, like, resentment in her heart,
Yeah. I mean, that's the fucking dance of it, That's the acceptance dance. Acceptance versus resentment versus... It's a big fucking dance. It's a big, ever-evolving puzzle. And,
aside from, like, a potential future partner and how she might view my ambition or lack thereof, right? It also made me think about, like, my family that I love, and they love me so much, and my whole, like, how would they view me? Like, this guy, he's, like, 55 years old, and he's still driving a shitty car, like, he's still, like, just he's getting by. He's independent, but he's not like thriving. We thought he'd do so much, and it was such a conflicting thought but eventually I stopped thinking about it and I was like, you know what? This is not the way to go about this thought process. I have to decide in myself, like, am I okay with it, right?
Right.
And I can't make up my mind about that. I can't figure out if my lack of ambition or lack of desire for material things is coming from some sort of like spiritual anti-capitalist angle, and in my mind, or
but
is it that I think that I'm not capable of accomplishing those things, because
that's fascinating. That's fascinating. That's kind of hilarious, actually. That is kind of hilarious. It is kind of hilarious to be like you're picketing for fucking like whatever. You're like, I'm anti-capitalist, fuck the system, blah blah blah. And then in the back of your mind, you're like, what if I'm only doing this because I think I would like
I'm
suck
not capable
at having
of
a job.
working that hard to get those things.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's extremely funny. And it's extremely funny, and it's quite possible that might be the case. That you just like, I mean, yeah, if you're like super anti-capitalist and you're super not materialistic, it's like maybe you're just like, I think I'm just like a little fuck it. I just don't want to work that hard. But you. Okay, but here's the thing from talking to you is that you're not like oh, I just want to like jerk off all day and play video games. I don't want to like do anything. You're just like, I don't want to look, here's the thing. Pretty much everyone just wants to be able to, I think it's a universal goal that everyone just wants to not have to worry about money. Everyone just wants to not have to worry about, like, their own survival and just, like, do whatever they want to fucking do. That's, like, I think that's literally everyone. From, like, hyper-capitalist, whatever the fuck people to hyper, anti-capitalist people. Everyone is like that. So I don't think that's, like, a completely uncommon way to be, and you have like desires. You want to be a fucking behavioral therapist. You want to help people. You want to do stuff, but you just don't care about. It's okay to not care about making that much money, or like not care about having a nice car, or not care about like how you present to other people in terms of your like material status. But like if you don't care about fucking anything, then yeah, you're gonna be depressed. But you clearly care about stuff.
Definitely, and like it sucks because like I am like surrounded by people who are doing really well, right? Like everybody is really successful, and everybody's like well off, and it's a lot about like getting more comfortable with myself. I think like I said, it's been only so recently that I'm becoming more of a confident person, more a lot of like practicing a lot of self-love and all that other.
Well, where's all that where is all that coming? Where is all that coming from that you feel like you're becoming a happier person?
This time last year, I was actually ended up in a psych ward, right? Voluntarily, right? A year ago, and coming out of it, like it was a terrible experience in the psych ward. It was pretty awful, right? And coming out of it, I just felt really empty, like completely empty. And my mom and my sisters, they needed a lot of financial help. And, I work like a minimum wage job. And I was just like, I don't think I can do anything in life right now. Like zero things. I think the only thing I'm capable of doing is like just going to lay down somewhere and then never getting up again, right? But the love that I have for my mom and my sisters, who have been so kind, loving, and supportive, I was like, no, like, if there's one thing I gotta do, is I gotta make sure I gotta get this money to them, right? So I was like, I'm just gonna do one thing. I'm completely empty, have no desire of anything. I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to go to work and do my fucking job and then give them money, right?
Yeah.
And then from that, I felt like a sense of purpose. You know, I was like, okay, I'm contributing something. I'm producing something and then contributing something. I'm helping them. And then gradually, I was like, you know what? You know, I was like pretty overweight and ended up losing like 50 pounds in this whole process. And I was like, you know what? One day I was like, it's been a month and a half of me going to work consistently on time every day. Let me just try like working out, you know?
Yeah.
So I started working out. And then a month and a half after that, I was like, you know what? Now I'm going to work and working out. Let me just try and eat a little bit better. I don't have to eat like shit all the fucking time, right? Mm-hmm. And then gradually, like, I just kept adding one more thing and one more thing. I was like, one day I was like, you know, let me start meditating. You know, and I started meditating. And that helped profoundly. I was like, you know what? Let me start meditating and journaling and on and on and on. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I, like, woke up and I was just like, holy shit, like, I feel very content. You know? I feel very at peace. It's not like
because you're doing stuff. You're not just like floating around in a endless ocean of everything and nothing at once.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I think you know, like I don't have like I don't have my own like room to sleep in and shit, right? I like spent like 3 hours at the house during the weekdays. You know, and that's just to like come home after the work in gym, shower, and go right to sleep. And you know, it's being 31 and not having any fucking privacy, right? It's rough, man. But you know, I one day I was just like feeling really down about it, you know, after, you know, there's like 3 months after the psych ward. I was just like, holy shit, I'm broke. I'm like sleeping on the floor in a living room. I don't have privacy. This fucking sucks, right? So I started meditating. And I was like, you know what? Every time I feel anxiety in my life, every time I feel like some pressure, I always try and distract myself from it. I always try to fucking run away. But I'm just going to sit here for 10 minutes and I'm just going to sit with this anxiety. I'm just going to sit with this feeling of like, this fucking sucks, right?
You know what's so funny though? You know what's really funny about this is that it feels is that sitting with that feeling for 10 minutes feels like an eternity, and yet I have escape, and yet every fucking time, Mo, escaping that feeling by browsing Reddit for an hour, it takes way more fucking time. Isn't that insane?
It is.
Everything that you do to escape the feeling takes way more time than actually like addressing it. It's insane.
Addressing it, right. No, absolutely. And you know, I mean, I've distracted myself in 100 ways. Reddit is one. You know, just fuck, I feel anxiety. Let me just like, you know, smoke some weed real quick, right? I'm not saying smoking weed is bad, whatever. I smoke weed all the fucking time, but when you're feeling anxiety, in order to deal with it, like self-medicating shit, right? That's another way to distract yourself from it. There's 100 other ways. But, you know, as I was, like, sitting there with that feeling, and, you know, I just took some deep breaths, you know, 5 minutes later, I was like, whoa, I'm safe here. Like, I'm safe here. In
your own
I might
brain?
be in a living room without a room. Yeah, in this house, I am safe. I was like, I have a place to sleep. Okay, I can get rest and I'm safe. And I was like, wait, I have love of like my mother and my sisters here, right? And I like damn near shed a tear. And I was like, yo, of course, like that doesn't mean that I shouldn't strive for independence as I desperately want to, and I'm working on it. But in that moment, right, just sitting with that feeling, it did me wonders. And that's kind of be like my thing on like even with like the loneliness thing, right? Every time that feeling comes up, I don't try to like run away from it. Like, no, like now I know I got to sit with it. You know what I mean? Because it has gifts to offer. It has so many gifts to offer, you know? as long as you're kind to yourself, you treat yourself with love. These feelings, they have so many gifts to offer. The gifts of patience, the gifts of understanding, the gifts of feeling content.
Yeah.
So I think that's like ultimately what like sparked the awakening.
Mo, you're really I just everything we've been talking about over the past 40 minutes. I'm really with you on. Here's the thing is like there's we need, I think, and I'm not going to put this in like political science terms. I'll put this in like maybe I'll put this in like self-love terms in a sense. It's like I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's like a yin and yang, and I talked about this a little bit on a couple episodes of it. It's like I think like for my I'll use this just as an example, but this is like kind of a microcosm for a larger concept of like I accept my body as it is. And I love myself, and I accept myself and whatnot. But also I shouldn't be such a fat piece of shit all the time. You know what I mean? Like those two ideas, I really just believe so deeply that they can coexist. Because if you only believe, if you're too hard on like, if I went too hard on like accepting myself exactly as I am, I would be fucking miserable. I would be depressed. I would never get out of my bed. I would be eating from the 7-Eleven 10,000 calories of candy every single day. It would be miserable. That's full acceptance right there. That's 100% acceptance. I think that you need like 50% acceptance. And then 50%, I'm gonna not eat candy and stop being a fat piece of shit. But if I'm 100% like I'm a piece of shit, I suck, I'm fat, I'm a loser. If then that you're just anxious and miserable all the fucking time, So you need. Right. That's why we need. Like, I don't know what it is. What's between capitalism and socialism? We need that. Like, we need that. We need those two things combined, divided by two. Because I really have been because here's another thing. So here's two more ideas. Here's two conflicting ideas. Is I've really genuinely, intrinsically have sincerely been enjoying having this conversation with you about capitalism and acceptance and all these things. And I'm also totally gonna put an ad break afterwards so that I can make money. I'm gonna do both of those things at once.
Right.
What can we get? How do we combine these two things? There's got to be something in the middle. That is the perfect yin and yang way to live. Because if it's all, because we don't want like $1 billion is too much money. We're gonna get. I don't know what we're getting into, but like.
Yeah, well, in regards to like you saying, I accept myself completely. I love myself completely, right? And I think there's like this whole like thing going on in society right now, and it's like stemming from these like upscale yoga studios where people are like chilling with their crystals a lot, and they're turning these like profound truths, right, on how to be into something like really like overused and cliche. Like this whole like idea of like I love myself completely, right?
Right.
There's just so much of like spirituality and psychology that's turning into like pop spirituality, pop psychology, right?
Yeah.
And the way a lot of these like, I don't know, what do you want to call it, influencers or self-proclaimed yoga gurus, right? The way that they promote these things, the same exact thing you said, I love myself fully. It's coupled with this like sense of there's no like they don't take the responsibility to like break that down a little bit further. They just promote it as that, right? and it's I don't know. It's like kind of like coupled with like a sense of consumption in there somewhere. It's kind of like attached to that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's like the problem. Like when these just simple truths about life that everybody pretty much knows, when they start to become cliche, it's just like, you know, because I heard a lot of this shit when I was like trying to, I don't know what you want to call it, like better myself, right? Like when I first heard the word mindfulness, I kind of like laughed at that idea, right? I'm like, yo, what is this like, you know, yoga studio bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
Because I associate that completely with like people like rubbing on crystals, talking about like hippy dippy shit. But when I looked into mindfulness, when I like read about it, when I read books from like Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. and Don Miguel Ruiz, like I was like, oh, this is actually genuinely profound. This is actually genuinely helpful, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of these like things become so cliche, you know? They have a sense of like pop culture attached to them. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I don't like I also don't like the kind of like overly flowery presentation of mindfulness and self-love, because it makes it, you know, it's like putting on too much perfume. Yeah. You know what I mean? It just it's too much, but it's helpful stuff when you actually get into it. Yeah, I don't know, man. I everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. Everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. And I'm trying to remind myself of a lot of these concepts as well, as I have my own personal existential crises, you know.
You know, you said you feel two callers ago, I believe it was. I was like listening in and out, you know. But one of the things you had said was like, you feel directionless, right?
I do often feel directionless. Sure.
I mean, if you feel comfortable, I mean, you know, like expanding on that, like sharing a bit about it. If you don't, that's completely fine, you know.
Sure. I mean, fuck it. Sure. I mean, well, I like doing this podcast, you know, especially when I get to have conversations like these that I really enjoy. But you know, also like I'm engaged right now. I'm like actually doing something in this very moment as I'm talking to you. But a lot of the time I feel I kind of let myself go a little bit. I feel a little unengaged, and I'm like, you know, what should I do to, like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, what to do next. Like, I think I always, with the Gecko thing, I was always like, well, what should I do next with this? Like, because this is going to be, like, a, you know, I guess a thing that I can do something else with. And right now, where I'm doing is I'm just, like, I've decided that sitting and trying to think about the direction that you want your life to go in next is a little stupid, because your life doesn't move forward. Oh fuck! I just knocked something over on the table. Your life doesn't move forward. Your life doesn't move forward as a result of you like thinking. Like, I mean, you think a little bit, right? It's another yin yang thing. But like, you know, when you think too much, you go into a spiral. And so I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do things that I think are cool. Like, I think by the time this episode airs, I'll be walking through rural Japan with my boy Jason. I'm doing an art gallery. I think that'll be cool. So I'm just like, I'm in a let me try shit. Because, you know, I built this audience with this podcast, and it's cool, and I'm like, well, what else can I do, you know, that would just be fun or cool or interesting or exciting? Because, you know, I don't want to be stuck in the same routine over, like, I don't, like, and I'm also just, I'm like, man, I'm going to be, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that all the ages I thought I would never be, I'm going to be. Like, if you told me at 19 that one day I would be 27, I just wouldn't believe you, and now I am that. And so now I'm having this existential crisis where I'm like, oh no, one day I'm going to be 56 years old, what the hell is my life going to look like? Am I going to be wearing this gecko suit when I'm 56 years old? You know, I mean, people do that, like people, like musicians or whatever, like, you know, people, you know, I'm just like, what the hell is my life going to look like? So I just got to keep trying new, different things that I think maybe could be cool or interesting, to try to find a new path forward. Because I've journaled endlessly about what I might want to do with myself, but it's just kind of, and especially like with the, you know, like how do I, you know, do more things in person that I think would be cool. Because, you know, I really feel like I enjoy being out in the real world more than I do in the computer world. And so I'm just trying to figure out how to do that stuff. And again, you fall into the trap of like, oh, I'm going to journal until I come up with the perfect idea of something to do. And I think that's a bad strategy. So I'm just kind of like, okay, my ultimate antidote to my directionlessness has been, okay, let me just start like doing things that could potentially be interesting. And then now, again, you know, we talked about the deathbed, and I'm like, well, look, when I'm on my deathbed, I'm not going to regret having tried these various things that might be cool or interesting to do. So yeah, that's my little spiel.
You know, there's two things you said, I think, like, you, like, nailed on the head, right? Like, one thing, I mean, I'll just sum it up with, like, you know, you said pretty much, you know, it's not that motivation comes first and then you take action, right? No, you take action first, and then motivation eventually comes, you know?
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
gotta do shit, right? And the second thing you said is like, you know, you're journaling, kind of come up with like the perfect thing. That's like a huge, you know, hurdle, actually. It's good to journal, it's great to journal, but like to think of like what is the optimal, the number one option in my life right now, the perfect option, right? I'm going to wait until I come up with that and then do that, right? That is a massive hurdle.
It's exactly what I've been doing for years. It's a massive hurdle. It's almost akin to like idealization versus acceptance. Right.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. You know, and you know, there's this one song I listen to almost every single day, right? And there's a line in it that I absolutely love that helps me out a lot because, you know, like I don't know, like I'm working this job right now that's like feels, I know it's not meaningless. I definitely know that deep down that it's not meaningless, right? But at times when it does start to feel meaningless, right, I always keep this like line in my mind, you know, which is I got to translate it from a different language to English, which I think it would translate to I put two paper wings on my heart and watch it float away. Where I thought it would go, it didn't. My heart might be directionless, but it's not distracted. And that helps me out a lot, right? Yeah.
It might be directionless, right? But it's not distracted.
Distracted.
I'm putting that on a. I'm getting that branded on my ass.
Yo, you know, and I've heard, you know, I've seen a lot of your clips. So much of that shit is hilarious, right? But I've also seen the stuff like your interview with Logic. I saw all of that, right? And you know, I mean, I don't know you personally. You know, you seem like a person with a good heart, if I was to take a wild fucking guess. But who knows? You might be just a dude dressed up as a gecko with green paint on his face, murdering people in his basement, right? But as far as I can tell, right, like you seem like a person with a good heart, right, with good intentions. You know, that alone, I think is like you should take a little bit of comfort in that, right? It's gonna take you. Right. Definitely.
I appreciate that. I'm trying my best, man. I'm trying my best. Oh man, yeah. I'm trying my best to be. I don't know. I guess my main motivations lately have just been like to, you know, again, escape from despair. Yeah, that's been my main motivation.
You know,
sometimes
like,
I think, you know, what's fun
me,
is I think,
mm-hmm.
go ahead.
No, you first. You first. I know what I'm gonna say, but go ahead.
Yeah, forget it. What were you gonna say? And then, you know, I have to end this call sort of soon because I think you've tricked me into being vulnerable. No, not actually. But, no, not actually. Well, I mean, a little bit actually, but it's okay. It's okay. I accept it.
Hey, if
what were you gonna say?
End this call, I know you're in Japan right now, right?
I
don't want to take up too much of your time, but have you heard of the movie called Perfect Days?
Perfect Days? Oh, that's yeah, I have heard of that movie. I never watched it though.
I think you might get something out of it if you have the time to check it out. I think that based on all the conversation that we just had right now, if you get the time to check it out, and I think it'll be super special while you check it out in Japan. It's a Japanese movie, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll watch it tonight.
You might enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll watch that tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate you talking to me. I really appreciate you, you know, bouncing ideas off and such. This felt great. Like, I was sitting here and I was just about to meditate, but I was like, you know what? Let me see if Lyle happens to cover. Right? So this really put a smile on my face, man. I feel really happy, you know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mo. I appreciate it. It's sincerely very good talking to you. I feel like today the therapy gecko was therapied. This is the therapy Mo episode. You therapy geckoed the therapy gecko today. So thank you for that.
When I officially become a therapist, I'll see you as my first client, man.
That would be that sounds like a conflict of interest, but I'm down. I'm game.
All right, man. You have a good time in Japan. You know,
right,
I hope you go do your thing, man. Take it easy.
Thank you, Mo. Take it easy. Later on, man.
Bye.
That was a nice phone call. I really enjoyed talking to Mo. It's you know, it's interesting. I went on a rant last episode about talking about your problems, not really solving them. But it does help you think. Like, I mean, again, it's a yin-yang fucking thing. There's like 50% thinking and 50%, I don't know what the exact ratios are, but it's some math equation that's part thinking and part taking actual action. And I think if you're, and I'm definitely a neurotic person, I'm definitely an overthinker, and so I think I think too much. It's a spiral of thinking. But it is good to kind of have a conversation like that gets you with another person. You know, Mo definitely described a lot of things that I have cooking in my brain as well. And it's nice when you get to talk to somebody like that because it makes you feel like you're not crazy, you know, for having you're actually what you may think is some kind of unique human experience has actually been fucking observed and recorded by other people who are not you, which is comforting in a sense. So yeah, I appreciate Mo for calling in. And do I have anything else to say? I hope that conversation was beneficial for the people of the computer to listen to. And I'm a gecko. And thank you guys for listening.